Claire Hartwell never thought that the day before her own wedding she would be standing at the office entrance, looking into the face of a man she hadn't seen in 20 years. Father, Richard Hartwell. The same man who one morning simply didn't come home, leaving a 5-year-old girl and her mother alone with an empty refrigerator and unpaid bills. He stood near the service entrance, leaning against the wall of a gray brick building. The September sun was blinding, and at first Claire didn't understand who it was. Just a silhouette, a man about 60, in a faded jacket with short gray hair. Then he stepped forward, and she saw his face. Recognition hit like a punch to the gut. The same eyes, the same look, only wrinkles, lots of wrinkles, and some strange weariness in his entire appearance. "Claire," he said quietly. "Wait, hear me out." Claire stopped, not because she wanted to. Her legs simply stopped obeying. For 20 years she had imagined this meeting. For 20 years she had prepared the words she would throw in his face. But now all those words had disappeared somewhere, dissolved in the air and in the silence between them. "There's no excuse for what I did," her father said. His voice was steady, without trembling, without tears. "But that's not what this is about." Claire smirked, looked at him in surprise. "Not what this is about? Seriously? You show up here after 2 decades to tell me this is not what this is about?" He didn't look away, didn't try to justify himself, just kept standing there, as if he knew he had exactly 1 minute and spending it on apologies would be pointless. "Tomorrow," he said slowly, articulating each word, "when you leave City Hall, a black minivan will pull up, with a white ribbon on the hood. Don't get in it, under any circumstances." Claire raised her eyebrows. This was so unexpected that she couldn't immediately find words to respond. "What?" "Don't get in the car that comes for you," her father repeated. "I'll be waiting around the corner. Just trust me." "Trust you?" Claire burst out laughing. The laugh came out hysterical, sharp. "Do you even realize how absurd this is? You abandoned me and Mom when I was 5, 20 years without a word, and now you show up on the eve of my most important day of my life and say some nonsense about a minivan?" Her father was silent. His face remained impenetrable. No emotions, no attempts to move her. He didn't extend his hand, didn't take a step forward, just stood there looking at her, as if he knew she wouldn't believe him anyway. "Did you hear me?" he finally asked. "I heard you," Claire snapped. "And you know what? I want you to leave. I don't know why you came. Maybe your conscience woke up, or you just got bored, but I'm not interested. Tomorrow is my wedding, understand? My wedding, and I'm not going to waste a minute of my time on you." She turned and walked toward the entrance, quickly, almost running. Her heart was beating rapidly, pounding in her temples. Her hands wouldn't obey when she held her pass to the turnstile. Her father didn't call after her, didn't run after her. When Claire turned around at the elevator, his silhouette was still visible at the entrance. He just stood there watching her go. Then he turned and slowly walked away. Claire went up to the office and locked herself in the restroom, sat on the toilet lid and buried her face in her palms. She didn't cry, just sat there trying to calm her breathing. Black minivan, white ribbon, don't get in. What nonsense! What was he even talking about? Claire pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. Nathan was smiling in the photo, her fiancé, her future husband. Tomorrow at exactly 11 in the morning, they would become husband and wife, and no black minivan and no missing father would ruin this day for her. She ran her palm over her face, straightened her hair, and left the restroom. "Claire, why are you so pale?" asked her colleague Jessica, meeting her at the water cooler. "Everything's fine, just nerves. Tomorrow is the big day." "I understand, Before my wedding, I didn't sleep for 3 nights, but then everything settles. You'll see." Claire nodded and went to her office. The rest of the day passed in a fog. She tried to focus on work, but her thoughts kept returning to that meeting with her father. Why now? Why today? In the evening, when Claire returned home, she saw that Nathan was already there. He was sitting in the kitchen, scrolling something on his phone and frowning. "Hi," she said, kissing him on the cheek. "Did something happen?" "No, everything's fine. Mom just called, started talking about the banquet again, says we should have chosen a bigger restaurant." Claire smiled. Margaret Bennett, Nathan's mother, was a dominant and stubborn woman. From the moment Nathan proposed, she had tried to control every aspect of the wedding. The choice of dress, menu, guest list, she stuck her nose everywhere. "Nathan, this is our wedding," Claire gently reminded him, "not hers." "I know, she's just like that. Forget it. Tomorrow everything will be great." He hugged her, and Claire pressed against him. Warm, reliable, her Nathan. The man who burst into her life 3 years ago and turned everything upside down. Successful, self-confident, with his own business. The construction company his father founded before his death brought in a stable income. Not millions, but enough to live comfortably. "Nathan," Claire began quietly, "what if tomorrow something went wrong?" "What exactly?" He pulled back and looked at her with slight concern. "Well, I don't know. Sometimes there are surprises." "Claire, what are you talking about? Are you having pre-wedding jitters?" "No, no, of course not. It's just, these are all nerves. Nonsense." She didn't tell him about her father. Why? To spoil Nathan's mood on the eve of the wedding? To make him start asking questions she had no answers to? They had dinner, watched some movie, and Nathan left for his mother's house, a tradition before the wedding, and Claire couldn't fall asleep for a long time. She lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying her father's words in her head. Black minivan, white ribbon, don't get in. Why did he say it so confidently? Why didn't he try to justify himself or explain? He just said it and left, as if he knew nothing more was needed. The next morning, Claire woke to the sound of the alarm. 7 o'clock, wedding day. She lay for a few minutes looking at the ceiling, then abruptly sat up and stretched. Nerves, adrenaline, anticipation. Nathan had left for his place last night. Tradition, not to see the bride before City Hall. Claire was home alone. She took a long shower, dried her hair, curled it with a curling iron, sprayed it with hairspray, did her makeup. The dress hung on a hanger by the window, white, elegant, without excess. Claire didn't like puffy outfits. She liked everything concise and tasteful. At 9, her friend Sarah arrived, who was the maid of honor. She brought a bouquet, champagne, and lots of enthusiastic words. "You're so beautiful. Nathan's going to faint when he sees you." Claire smiled. Inside, everything was tightening with excitement. Good, right excitement. The kind that happens before something important and long awaited. They drank a glass of champagne, laughed, took a bunch of photos. Sarah helped secure the veil on Claire's head. Then a car arrived, white, decorated with ribbons and flowers. The wedding procession, everything as it should be. City Hall was located in the city center, in an old mansion with columns. When they pulled up, guests were already crowding at the entrance. Relatives, friends, colleagues, all dressed up, all smiling. Nathan stood on the steps in a black suit, tall, stately, with that trademark confident smile of his. Claire got out of the car and he stepped toward her. "You're just beautiful. God, I have no words," he whispered, taking her hand. The ceremony proceeded as usual. Vows, rings, kiss, applause, congratulations. Guests surrounded them from all sides, threw confetti, shouted, "Kiss!" The photographer clicked the shutter non-stop. Claire laughed, hugged Nathan, threw the bouquet which one of the girls caught to enthusiastic exclamations. Everything was like a fairy tale, exactly as she had imagined. Then they went outside. Guests began getting into cars. Some had already left for the restaurant where the banquet was to be held. Nathan was distracted by the photographer. They needed to discuss some details of the shoot, the route, angles. He stepped aside, gesturing and explaining something. Claire stood at the entrance to City Hall, holding a small white purse in her hands and smiling. Sarah had gone somewhere to touch up her makeup. A crowd was making noise around, but for a moment Claire was alone. And then a black minivan pulled up to the curb, with a white ribbon on the hood. Claire's heart stopped. She stared at the car, not believing her eyes. This couldn't be true. It was a coincidence. An ordinary car, an ordinary white ribbon. A man in a dark suit got out of the driver's door. He walked up to Claire and nodded politely. "Claire Hartwell?" She nodded, unable to say a word. "You were asked to ride separately. Nathan will arrive later. He said it's a surprise." The driver's voice was even, calm, professional. He opened the back door and Claire saw the interior. Leather seats and a woman sitting in the back seat. Elegant, about 50, in a strict suit. In front of her on the seat lay a folder with documents. "Good afternoon," the woman said, smiling. "My name is Victoria Ashford. I'm the family lawyer. We need to discuss a couple of formalities while we drive to the restaurant. It won't take much time." Claire stood rooted to the spot. Everything inside was screaming. Everything her father had said turned out to be true. Black minivan, white ribbon, lawyer, documents. "Claire," the woman called out, frowning slightly. "Is everything all right?" Claire turned sharply. Nathan was still standing off to the side, talking with the photographer. Sarah had disappeared somewhere. The guests had dispersed. No one saw what was happening. And then she remembered, not her father's words, his intonation, that even tone, without pleading, without hysteria, just fact. "Don't get in." Claire took a step back. "Excuse me?" she said. "I need to get something. 1 minute." She turned and walked quickly away from the minivan. Not running, that would be too noticeable, just at a quick pace. She went around the City Hall building, turned the corner, and there, leaning against an old gray sedan, stood her father. Their eyes met, and Claire understood. He knew. He knew exactly what would happen. "Let's go," her father said, opening the door. "I'll explain on the way." Claire looked at him, then turned around. From around the corner came the sound of a starting motor. The minivan was leaving, without her. She got into her father's car. Her hands were shaking, her whole body tensed like a string. Richard started the engine and smoothly pulled away. He was silent, didn't rush her. Claire looked out the window, trying to collect her thoughts. "How did you know?" she finally squeezed out. Her father silently pulled a folded sheet of paper from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. Claire unfolded it, a printout of a transportation service request. Date, a week ago. Customer, Prime Consulting LLC. Description, minivan, no company logos. Route, after City Hall through the industrial zone. In the comments in small print, bride rides alone. There will be a lawyer with documents in the car. Driver should not interfere. Claire reread it 3 times. Then she looked up at her father. "What does this mean?" "It means," Richard answered evenly, "that they wanted to take you to a quiet place and make you sign papers, while all the guests are at the restaurant, while the groom is waiting for you, because his mother will say there's some surprise. By the time someone realizes, it would be too late." Claire went cold. "Who ordered this car?" Richard didn't answer right away, just looked at the road. Then he said quietly, "Your brand new mother-in-law." Claire sat in her father's car and looked at the printout he had given her. The letters were blurring before her eyes. She reread the lines again and again, trying to find at least some mistake, at least some explanation that would make all this less terrible. Bride rides alone. There will be a lawyer with documents in the car. Driver should not interfere. Margaret? Claire repeated, looking up at her father. Are you sure? Richard nodded. He was driving calmly, without fuss. They were going somewhere toward the outskirts of the city, past residential neighborhoods and shopping centers. I checked the customer. Prime Consulting LLC is registered to Margaret Bennett. She opened it 2 years ago. Formally, consulting services, but in fact the company hardly works. Tax reporting is minimal. They conduct one-time operations through it. Claire listened and couldn't believe it. Margaret, Nathan's mother, the woman who at family dinners told stories about her son's childhood, baked pies, and called Claire daughter. Why did you even see this request? Claire asked. You're a driver. Dispatcher, her father corrected. For the last 5 years, I've been working as a dispatcher at Elite Transportation. We service VIP clients, weddings, corporate events, business trips. I take requests, distribute cars, control routes. He fell silent, gripping the wheel tighter. Claire saw his shoulders tense. A week ago, this request came in, Richard continued. Ordinary at first glance, minivan for a wedding. But I always read the comments, it's part of the job. And when I saw this phrase about the bride and documents, something clicked. Too strange. Why transport the bride alone? Why a lawyer in a wedding car? Claire was silent. Her father continued. I checked the wedding date, then the bride's name, Claire Hartwell. I didn't immediately realize it was you. The surname is ours. But when I saw it, I decided to check, just in case it was you. Claire, I know I have no right to appear in your life, but I couldn't just stand aside. His voice didn't tremble. There were no tears, no justifications, only dry facts. Claire realized that this was what scared her most. Her father wasn't trying to evoke pity. He was just doing what he thought was necessary. I started digging deeper, Richard said. Checked the customer, traced it to Margaret Bennett, then found information about her son, Nathan Bennett, owner of a construction company. I pulled up public data on his business. Claire, he has problems, serious problems. Claire's heart stopped for a moment. What problems? Debts. Big debts. His company took out loans for development 2 years ago. Several major projects fell through. Clients refused contracts. One went bankrupt himself. As a result, Nathan was left with unfinished projects and loans he had nothing to pay with. The banks are demanding repayment. If he doesn't find money in the next 6 months, his company will go bankrupt. Claire stared at her father. How do you know this? I have an acquaintance who works in the credit department of one of the banks. I asked him to check. Unofficially, he confirmed. Nathan Bennett is on the verge of collapse. Claire shook her head. No, that's impossible. Nathan didn't tell me anything. We've been together 3 years. He would have told me if there were such problems. Maybe he didn't want to upset you, Richard suggested, or he hoped everything would work itself out. But his mother apparently decided to act in her own way. Claire was silent. Thoughts were racing in her head. Nathan, debts, Margaret, documents in the minivan. What documents did she want me to sign? Claire asked quietly. I don't know exactly, her father admitted, but judging by everything, something related to financial obligations. Guarantee, power of attorney, consent to joint liability for debts. After registering the marriage, you become a wife. Documents signed by you come into force and you automatically find yourself drawn into his financial problems. Claire felt everything inside go cold. So they wanted to use me to cover Nathan's debts? Most likely, yes. Margaret is an experienced woman. She knows how such schemes work. Take you to a quiet place while all the guests are at the restaurant. The lawyer will explain that it's a formality, that it's necessary, that everyone does it. You'll sign without reading carefully, and then it turns out you're now liable for millions of debt. Claire covered her face with her hands. This was too much, too scary, too vile. What could they even take from me? She asked, lowering her hands and looking at her father. I work in the purchasing department. The salary is good, but not cosmic. I don't have a business, no huge savings. Why do they need me? Richard looked at her with a long gaze. Then he said quietly, Claire, you have the 3-bedroom apartment left after your mother's death, 80 square meters in a good neighborhood. Do you remember how much it's worth? Claire thought. The apartment. The same apartment where she grew up, where her mother spent the last years of her life. After her mother's death, the apartment passed to Claire by inheritance. She lived in it. Nathan had moved out from his mother and lived with her in this apartment. About $500,000, she answered slowly. $550 at current prices, Richard clarified. And that's not all. You have a cottage left from your grandmother, a 10-acre plot 30 miles from the city, house, bathhouse, garden. Do you remember when you last went there? Claire remembered. The cottage, a small house with carved window frames, an apple orchard, a river nearby. Grandmother died 8 years ago and left the cottage to her granddaughter. Claire rarely went, no time, but the place was nice, well maintained. Neighbors by agreement looked after the plot, and everything grown on it they took for themselves. A couple of years ago, she admitted. Everything's fine there. The neighbors are watching. This cottage is now worth about $200,000, Richard said. Maybe more. Cottage plots in that area have sharply increased in price after they brought gas there and repaired the road. Developers are buying up land for cottage communities. Claire felt her mouth go dry. $550,000 for the apartment, $200,000 for the cottage. Total, $750,000. That would be enough to completely pay off Nathan's debt and still have some left over. God, she whispered, they wanted to get access to my property. Exactly, Richard nodded. The documents they would have slipped you in that car gave Nathan or his mother the right to manage your property in case of financial difficulties. Formally, it would look like a joint decision of spouses. Actually, your apartment and cottage would become collateral for Nathan's debts. Claire stared at her father. So if Nathan couldn't pay back the loan, the bank could take my apartment and the cottage. Not exactly the bank, Richard corrected. The bank wouldn't have direct access to your property, but according to those documents you would have signed, Nathan or his authorized persons would have received the right to sell your real estate to pay off debts, and the authorized person would most likely be Margaret. You would have signed the papers without even knowing you were giving up control of your property. Why didn't you go to the police? She asked, lowering her hands and looking at her father. Because formally, no crime has been committed yet, Richard answered. A car request is not a crime. A lawyer in the cabin is not a crime either. Until you got in that car, until you were taken away, until you signed anything, there's no crime. The police wouldn't even consider such a statement. At most, they'd advise you to be more careful, Claire exhaled. The logic was iron and frightening. I had to just trust you, she said, a person who abandoned me 20 years ago. Her father was silent. He turned onto a side street and stopped the car near a small cafe. Let's go, he said. You need to come to your senses, then you'll decide what to do next. They went into the cafe, almost empty, only a couple of customers by the window. Richard ordered 2 coffees and sat down opposite his daughter at a table in the corner. Claire looked at him and tried to understand what she felt. Anger, gratitude, fear, all together. Why did you leave? She asked suddenly. 20 years ago, why did you just disappear? Richard took his cup of coffee, took a sip. His face remained impassive. I was weak, he said simply. Work wasn't going well. There wasn't enough money. Your mother constantly reproached me. I couldn't handle it. I ran away. That's the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Claire waited for more. It didn't come. And that's it? She asked. You just ran away and that's it?" "That's it," Richard confirmed. "There are no excuses. There weren't and there won't be." Claire squeezed the cup in her hands. Strange, but this honesty was more calming than any tearful apologies. "Mom died 10 years ago," Claire said. "Cancer. She worked until the very end to get me on my feet. You didn't even know." "I knew," her father answered quietly. "I found out 6 months after her death from old acquaintances. I wanted to come to the cemetery, but I didn't dare." Claire looked at him and didn't know what to say. Get angry? Forgive? Distance herself? "Why are you even following my life?" she asked. "I'm not following," Richard objected. "I just sometimes find out something by chance. The city isn't that big. Mutual acquaintances. I knew you work in a purchasing company, that everything's fine with you. That was enough for me." Claire exhaled. "And now? What do I do now? Go back to Nathan and say, 'Hi, honey, your mother wanted to deceive me and hang your debts on me.'" "That's your choice," Richard said. "I can't decide for you, but you have the right to know the truth, and you have the right to demand explanations." Claire pulled out her phone. 12 missed calls, 8 from Nathan, 3 from Sarah, 1 from a colleague, even more messages. "Where are you, Claire? Answer, we're worried. Are you okay?" She looked at her father. "Nathan is going crazy right now. Everyone at the restaurant is waiting. I have to call." "Call," Richard nodded. "Just think about what you'll say." Claire dialed Nathan's number. He answered on the first ring. "Claire? God, where are you? I almost went crazy. Are you okay?" His voice was full of panic, real, genuine panic. "I'm okay." The phone was off, Claire said. "Nathan, I need to talk to you. Urgently. Alone." "About what? What happened? You left and no one knows where. Sarah says you just disappeared." "Nathan, did you know your mother ordered a separate car for me, with a lawyer inside?" Silence. Long, heavy silence. "What?" Nathan finally squeezed out. "What car? What lawyer?" "A black minivan. Your mother ordered it through her company. It pulled up to City Hall right after the ceremony. The driver said you'd arrive later, that it's a surprise. Inside was a woman who introduced herself as the family lawyer, with documents." Another pause. Then hollowly, "I didn't know anything." "Are you sure?" "Claire, I swear to you, I had no idea. What car? What lawyer? I didn't order anything like that." Claire heard confusion in his voice, shock. But was there lies? "Your mother ordered it," Claire repeated, "through Prime Consulting LLC. That's her company." Nathan was silent. Then quietly, almost in a whisper, "God, Mom, she couldn't do that." "She could," Claire said harshly, "and she did." "Nathan, do you have debts? Big business debts?" The silence became even heavier. "How do you know?" Nathan finally squeezed out. "It doesn't matter. Answer the question." He sighed, long, wearily. "Yes, there are problems, serious problems. I wanted to tell you after the wedding, didn't want to spoil this day." "And your mother knew?" "Of course she knew. She tried to help me, was looking for investors, suggesting different options. But I didn't think, Claire. I swear, I didn't know she was planning this with the car." Claire closed her eyes. Nathan wasn't lying. She heard it in his voice. He didn't know, but his mother knew and acted. "Where are you now?" Nathan asked. "At a cafe, on the outskirts. Send the address. I'll come now. We'll discuss everything. Please." Claire looked at her father. He nodded silently. "Okay," Claire said. "Come, but alone, without your mother." "Without mother," Nathan repeated. "I promise." She dropped the call and looked at her father. "He didn't know," Claire said. "I'm sure he didn't know." "Maybe," Richard agreed, "but his mother definitely knew." "And acted purposefully," Claire nodded. 20 minutes later, Nathan's car pulled up to the cafe. He got out, looked around, and quickly went inside. He saw Claire and froze. Then his gaze fell on the man sitting next to her. "Who's this?" Nathan asked, approaching the table. "My father," Claire answered. "He warned me about the car." Nathan stared at Richard. "You're the father? The one who—" "Yes," Claire interrupted, "that one. He works as a dispatcher at the company that serviced your mother's order.